Welcome to On Point, a special Remembrance Day edition. We're live on ONTV and we're live on Facebook. Welcome. We always remember, we hope you enjoy that short video. And on today's show, Dan LaPrade, he's a big, important guy around here. He's the lead sponsor of the morning show with Luann and Tim. We'll be talking about politics, bylaws, and a bunch of other stuff. We'll be back with Dan right after these commercial messages.
This is On TV.
In your home, lighting is just as important as style.
With PowerView Motorization from Hunter Douglas, you can schedule your shades to light up the room, create privacy, or both, automatically. No hands required.
So your shades will always be in the right place at the right time in style. And it's only from Hunter Douglas.
Thanks for coming back to On Point. I'm Andy Martins, live on TV and live on Facebook. Tomorrow, Kathy Govan from the CAA to talk about all that they do and travel and all that. That's tomorrow on Point. Let's bring in Dan LaPrade. If you are watching Election 2019 on TV, you'll know who my guest is. He's the owner of KC Security, and welcome back to On Point on a more important day, Dan. Remembrance Day is celebrated in Canada, Veterans Day in the United States. It's always an important time, isn't it?
Absolutely, and we take today to remember, but we should always remember all year round, and always, and thankful for all the veterans, that have served and, are still, and the people that are still serving, we don't forget.
They fought in 2 world wars, and we wouldn't be where we are today without these people.
That's absolutely right. We're able to sit here and talk, and enjoy our freedom, right?
And we were talking before the live broadcast how fast time goes. On October the 21st was the election in Canada, and you and I were together on the second half of election 2019 with On TV. And let's talk a little bit about the results of that night. Andrew Scheer didn't fare as well as people thought he would.
No, he didn't. And thank you again for having me for that. It was a new experience. I'm not as experienced politically as you are, but I just don't think his message resonated enough with people. I think there was a few things that he did that, might have hindered his campaign. We all know that he distanced himself from Premier Ford, which might have actually hurt him a little bit in Ontario. But they just weren't quite able to capitalize on the certain areas that they needed to get to close in and reduce those Liberals to a minority.
Right. His message wasn't bought in the city of Toronto and the 905, and somehow it just didn't happen.
No, exactly right. And I believe the city of Toronto went all red when it comes to that.
That's correct, yes.
Of course, between Winnipeg and Vancouver, the Liberals were shut out, right? So there's a lot of division I found with the election.
Right.
We know we're hearing all that talk with separation and all that in Alberta and Saskatchewan, but it just seems that certain regions are completely polar opposites, and then you have the Bloc, who also seen a resurgence, right? So,
well, I think we could see a party similar to the Bloc in form in Alberta. There was talk about that in the last couple of weeks. Is that good for Canada, though?
I don't think so. I mean, I still find it odd that we have a party in Quebec that can, run federally like they do and only represent Quebec.
Right.
Whereas all the other parties, they're across the board.
Right. One final question on this one. Are you surprised that his own party, Mr. Scheer's party, came after him and wanted him to step down so quickly after the election and not waiting until April 2020?
I am a little surprised. I mean, normally that, comes down to the membership. They will decide that, right? It's probably important to not turf your leader right away, because this is a minority government and we don't know how things are going to go, right?
Right.
They all need to work together, and if you have no stability and you got to go through your leadership and your caucus is not united, then it just doesn't show a good front, for the Conservatives to be able to,
Right.
get along in Parliament with people when they can't even get their own stuff together. So I think it'd be important to let him remain leader at this time and then let the membership decide come April.
Exactly. Let's move on quickly and talk about the provincial side of things with Doug Ford, and I know you're a Conservative. Ross Romano and Greg Rickford, a lot of the cabinet ministers in Northern Ontario, have been absent of votes. From a Conservative perspective, Dan, what kind of message is this sending to the voters of Sault Ste. Marie when there's key elements being discussed for Northern Ontario?
It doesn't send a good message, obviously, right? Like, we want to see our MPPs representing the North and our constituents, right? So for all three of them to be absent, I mean, they claim that they were all on, tour about their fiscal report,
right.
But it's just so conveniently that all three of them on that day, right? I know it looks bad, so I just think that we need to have more representation when it comes to that kind of thing, those kind of things in Northern Ontario.
Right.
Yes, I am Conservative, but that doesn't mean that I won't criticize where I see it. And just showing up for important votes, or not showing up for important votes, but just touring around and doing photo ops isn't going to solve anything, right?
Right, exactly. Well, from a pundit's political perspective, it's not good, because you're showing that you don't care about your riding.
Yeah, that's exactly right. To be fair, I had a meeting with Mr. Romano back in the summer regarding some issues around our security legislation, and he was very good. I actually spoke with Premier Ford as well, so I've had some good positive interactions as well.
Right.
But when it comes to issues around here, I think we need to have some better representation on them, and being in the House for these important votes.
Right. Oh, you did great. Let's talk about, I think having you on today is a timely thing. What about all these scams that are going on people being called at home and being called on their cell phone? From a security perspective, is there some things people can do the viewers might be watching? Because a lot of these people are scam people for a lot of money. It's not a thing to be taken lightly.
No, it's not, Andy. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I get on our business line, I get these scam callers all the time, and it ties up our phone lines, right? They hit 0 as if it's an emergency or alarm response or something, and it's tying up my phone line. And I hear them all, oh, your computer needs this, or I'm going to come and arrest you if you don't pay.
Yeah.
I play along with some of them, if I have the time, but people really just need to know that the CRA and these places aren't going to arrest you if you don't pay them. they don't call you in this manner. Like, there's proper ways that they do things.
Right.
So I think people just need to be vigilant and, watch for these text messages too. Those are another one where they send you a message saying you've won some money, click on this and claim it. Again, you got to watch those.
Yeah, it's not good. What I do at home is I have if anybody calls me, I don't recognize the number, I'm going to put it on block, and then they can call and it's one ring. And so I think that saved me a lot of grief. And these scam calls seem to be increasing in 2019. It's not good.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, I know they came up with a, do not call registry as well for like call center stuff. Right. But I don't think that works. I block numbers every day when they call and they do that. I put them on the block list, but then every day there seems to be another one coming through. And they're coming from all over. Yeah. Like I get them from the US or, the UK, like all these different, numbers, and they don't make any sense.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the parking bylaws, and there's a lot of bylaws that could be, people aren't as compliant as they should be with this stuff. I made the point to a lot of the councillors that an 18-hour bylaw parking on the street is too lenient. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't even know about that bylaw, right? Where,
no.
You can only be parked on the street for 18 hours. And of course, now that we're into November, we're into the winter parking.
Right.
So right away, we've already hit snow, and plows are needing to go by, and there are all these vehicles parked on the side of the road. And they're not being ticketed because the police are too busy, and there's no other means of parking enforcement at this time, right?
Right, and that was the only outlet we had until this RFP is, council wants to deal with it. This will be rolled out probably early 2020.
Yeah, from my understanding, if it goes forward, it'll start in January 2020. I believe it's subject to budget meetings, but it's a good start. And I know the police board was also instrumental in that, because that was the recommendation, is let's get this away from the police, right? A third party can do it. It doesn't even have to be a security company.
Right.
So.
Okay, Dan, stay right there, and we'll be right back after these commercial messages on ONNPoint.
Last year we've been celebrating our 65th anniversary, dating back to services originating in our community in 1954, which is quite some time ago. It's been a great opportunity this past year to recognize the pioneers, the stakeholders that worked tirelessly to create what we are today. I'm grateful for everything that the families 65 years ago and the people that assembled the organization have done in order for us to achieve the success that we're experiencing 65 years later.
In your home, lighting is just as important as style.
With PowerView Motorization from Hunter Douglas, you can schedule your shades to light up the room. Create privacy, or both, automatically. No hands required.
So your shades will always be in the right place at the right time in style. And it's only from Hunter Douglas.
Welcome back to On Point. I'm Andy Martins. We're live on TV. We're live on Facebook, and we have a couple of big On Point shows coming up this month. Director of Tourism, Sault Ste. Marie, Jennifer King-Callan, and the Executive Director of the Economic Development Corporation, Dan Hollingsworth. Tomorrow, Kathy Govan from CAA on Great Northern Road. But right now, we're talking to Dan LaPrade, the owner of KC Security. Pardon me. Now, Dan, you had a recent incident with the city. In order to be fair and balanced, let our viewers know what happened there. Something that wasn't, you weren't expecting.
November 8th, we received a notice of cancellation of our seasonal security contract that we have with the city.
Right.
So it was unexpected, obviously. We were in the midst of a 3-year contract with options for extensions, and we're about 18 months into that.
Right.
So a letter was sent, and there was no specific reason given, and so and it was the Friday before a long weekend, so it kind of threw us all for a loop. I haven't been able to get any clear answers from staff or mayor and council at this point, but it's very unfortunate this has happened because it's the time of year. And it's going to affect jobs in our company, right? There's going to be people that are going to lose their jobs. So
right. And you mentioned too before the broadcast that the city with Sutherland closing, Agero's closing, we're being hit hard already.
Yeah, this is not a good time for the city right now. Goma Steel laying off people, and Agero, like you said, closing, right. And then Sutherland already closed, and we're a small business, right? So. That being said, we were doing fine before the city contract, and we have lots of other clients, so the city is not our only client. But that being said, we did expand and grow, so a lot of those extra people, right, are going to be without work.
Right.
They'll have to either go elsewhere or be laid off.
How many people did you have that were working on the city contract?
I'd say about a good 10 to 12, especially when you're in peak season, right?
Right.
I can't put a number right now on how many are going to lose their hours or what's going to happen, because I have to break down everything. And as you know, in business, now I've got to look for where I can find, efficiencies and save and, be able to keep people working. So
it was a big contract, and what you're trying to say, you might have to find 2-3 contracts to replace the city contract.
That's right. I mean, it's large in the sense that it's a lot of hours, but I mean, you do have your lulls because it's seasonal, right?
Right.
But it is, you have people on staff because you can't just do it with 5 people.
Right.
So yes, they may go to another company, and work, but the job is still lost from our company, right? And still coming out of our base. So.
Right. Let's talk about that, Dan, the contract, so our viewers can realize that a contract is not a simple 10-minute process from A to Z. It takes a long time from start to finish.
It does, and in this case, it was an RFP process, right, which we submitted along with other companies from all over the place, not just locally. I know some from in other parts of Ontario applied. The city evaluates it. They may not choose based on price, right? A tender always means that they got to go with the lowest price, but an RFP allows them flexibility to choose who they want, who they think is going to do the best and give them the best value for their money.
Right.
Performance-wise, I feel we were doing a great job. We were advocating for changes and some tools in order to do our job properly, and that's where we hit a wall with city staff, and I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I would like to get answers. But that's what we were hit with, right?
So you were trying to go above and beyond what normally a company would do for a contract.
Absolutely, right? I mean, like, for example, enforcing the animals off-leash bylaws. That's something that we had a major problem with. We had a dog biting incident at Bellevue Park earlier this year, so we called for more action on that. Basically, it's a kick the can down the road kind of thing. Nobody wanted to take responsibility with the city. So here we are today now without the contract because because the action wasn't taken, and now we're the bad guys.
Right. One can say the dog leash thing is almost like the residential parking 18-hour bylaw. It's just not. It just people aren't paying attention to it.
Yeah. I mean, like to me, that's more important issue than the shopping cart thing that was recently passed, for example. Right. I really don't care about a shopping cart, Like let's look at some more pressing issues rather that we can fix with simple legislation, right? Simple bylaws. Right now, like I was telling you before we got on air, the bylaw for animals off leash you can't even get a ticket for that because of the way the bylaw is written.
Oh wow.
So anybody can go around with their dog off leash, and the Humane Society or the police can't even write you a actual fine. It has to go through the courts. So that just ties up the courts and everything. And
well, let's take that to a little bit bigger spectrum here, and probably won't happen here, but let's say it's a pit bull that's off leash. That could be very dangerous for small children or anything else, kind of thing.
Yes, it can be, right? And this is why we were so strict on that, because that was part of our job and duties that was given to us when we took the contract on.
Right.
And the dog biting incident that happened, that was 10 feet away from one of our security guards. So that could have been my guard, which then affects my WSIB premiums, my staff, right? It could affect his potential career. He's now moved on, actually, and he's in corrections.
Right.
So, I mean, these are all things that we got to take into account, right?
Right, exactly. I got about a minute left, Dan. Give me a short answer on this. Is security bigger now than it was 10 years ago?
Oh, definitely. I started 12 years ago, and I almost lost track of how many years, but 12 years ago, and I've watched it grow. And it's not just the physical security side, like the technology side is really fast growing as well.
Right.
So it's definitely grown.
Awesome. I appreciate you coming on the show. You'll be back next month again. Thank you so much.
I will. I look forward to it. Thanks again.
All right, Dan. We'll be back to wrap up the show right after these messages.
Recently, the Government of Ontario established a $100 million affordability fund to help Ontarians who don't qualify for low-income conservation programs ease the burden of their electricity bill. Whether you rent or own your home, as long as you pay your electric bill, you could qualify. There are 3 levels of support available. The first is a home energy kit with upgrades like smart power bars and LED light bulbs. The second includes Energy Star appliances that help keep things cool during the hot summer months. The third is for electrically heated homes so that your power bills don't break the bank during those long Canadian winters. Plus, all upgrades, including installation, are completely free of charge. Visit affordabilityfund.org or call 1-855-494-FUND to find out if you qualify.
Here's to the straggly ones, the itchy ones, the black, brown, red, and gray ones, the ones grown by Dad, the ones grown for Dad. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Sign up now at Movember.com.
Welcome back to On Point. We hope you enjoyed the show with Dan LaPrade, owner of KC Security. And as I mentioned earlier, a couple of big shows coming up in November. Dan Hollingsworth, the Executive Director of the Economic Development Corporation, and Jennifer King-Callan, Director of Tourism, Sault Ste. Marie. They'll be here this month. And tomorrow, Kathy Govin from CAA, she'll be here to talk about, did you know that they've reintroduced travel again? She'll be here to talk about that and more. That's tomorrow on Point. Have a great day. I'm Andy Martins.